Welcome back to another episode of the Paddock Pulse podcast. And if you're watching on the YouTube, you saw a really awkward pause because Leah's actually never let me do the introduction before and I panicked. Welcome back to another episode. We have a really fun guest with us today. We've got Kyle Rothfus, who is the founder of Mareworthy Charities. And you guys may know him better from his social media as Kyle, the OTTB Mare Guy. And we are excited to highlight another aftercare organization on the episode today. We haven't done one in a while, and it's something that is very near and dear to both Leah and I and is so important in our industry. And this particular group that we're going to talk about today is filling in such a needed gap. And they have some really exciting things that are happening in the near future. So welcome, Kyle.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, woo-hoo. Why don't you just jump right in, give us some background on yourself and also on Mareworthy?
Yeah, so I know we don't have a lot of time, so we won't go through the whole myself, but basically, I started off in horses like as a, horse crazy teenager kid with a family who wasn't into horses at all. And I started cleaning stalls and just kind of, I started by applying for a competition to win an American quarter horse. That was I drew a picture. It was supposed to be Zorro riding a horse. I did not win. But in the process, I had actually searched for boarding barns because I was like, I'm going to have a place for this. And then I ended up cleaning stalls at that barn. That's where I rode. And then at college, I got into riding more seriously and was competing professionally in dressage on the East Coast, and but also working for a Thoroughbred bloodstock agent, doing the sales at Keeneland and Phasic-Tipton Timonium, and working at their farm in Pennsylvania, prepping babies. So that's when I fell in love with Thoroughbreds, was way back in 1999. It's kind of my first introduction to them as a breed. And I kind of fast forwarded to like 2002. I'm a very angsty, mid-20s kid who just doesn't want to do horses anymore because it's too much work, sell all my stuff and move to Vegas. So I ended up going away from horses for 12 years. Yeah, I just I literally just sold everything, packed my little Saturn up, drove to Vegas, and ended up out there working for the Celine Dion show, and then moved to Chicago. I just ended up kind of moving all over. So for 12 years, I had no horses. And I decided that in 2014, I was going to get back into having a horse. Yeah, I don't know if you know that, Leah, but anyway. So,
didn't know. Kyle and I actually know each other because I am just such a fan of what he's doing, but I had never heard that story, you guys. Yeah. And I, once again, you're going to have to watch the video because my face, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just shook. Please continue.
A little shook. That's hysterical. Nice try, buddy. You got bit by a horse. It doesn't go away.
It does not go away. Like literally I was living.
Can't fill that void.
No.
Celine Dion cannot fill the horse void. Sorry, Celine.
Even Celine Dion cannot fill it. And what was great was when I was living in the Midwest initially, I ended up moving from Indianapolis to Chicago because I took a job as the mascot for the Chicago Fire soccer team. Another thing Leah probably didn't know. So like I literally got to perform on at Soldier Field, as Sparky the giant viral dog, so the Dalmatian dog. Anyway, long story short.
Gosh, you tried so hard.
Yeah, I tried to get away so hard. Moved to Michigan, and that's where I finally ended up getting back into I will do this. I got my first mare. So for me, I knew I wanted a thoroughbred. I knew I wanted a mare. I actually wanted a chestnut thoroughbred mare. I ended up with a bay, and she was the perfect horse for me.
That makes you very unique. I'm sorry, right. Kyle. I'm gonna let you continue the story, but this is hysterical.
So I shot for 6 months, wanted an off-track thoroughbred. The thoroughbred makeover did not exist yet in the form it is today. It wasn't open to the public. So I was just shopping just for myself to have a dressage horse. I had never owned my own horse. I'd always had client horses. So I find this mare who's listed at a Hanoverian farm in Ohio, and her name's Lady McJazz. She had been turned out to pasture for a year. She had sold through the Keeneland November sale for $1,000 as a broodmare prospect after her horrible racing career. And she's by Shakespeare, so not a very, popular stallion. Out of an Indian Charlie mare, really well put together mare. Great for me for dressage. And the woman selling her was trying to make her a Hanoverian broodmare, but she just was out of money and needed to sell some of her horses. So I got her, started her under saddle, and then the makeover comes along. And the 2015 Thoroughbred makeover was the first one in Kentucky. So I was like, well, someone's like, do it. So I was like, sure, I'll do this. I'm completely out of shape, completely out of horses. We'll just jump back in. So I ended up applying and doing that my first year. And it was great. We were showing up through first level in her first, 6 months, dressage. And she was just lovely. and she still is. She's still alive. She's still with us. But she
Aw,
ended
good.
up going on to be our first broodmare. We actually had our first foal out of her. So for racing, I never thought I would be in racing at all. I did not think that. I now have 28 horses on our farm, and that was 11 years ago. So we went from that one. I started sharing her story for the makeover in 2015. It got a following on Facebook, which turned in. The page was originally hers. It was Lady McJazz, aka Freya, Makeover Bound or whatever. And then that turned into, I went the second year because Freya didn't get to go because she basically popped a curb 2 weeks before we were supposed to go to Kentucky. So we scratched. And of course, then I had to go. So I got a second horse from New Vocations. And then my 2016 horse, we were in the middle of a move. So we didn't really get prepped very well then. So I had to go a third year. So I ended up going to the makeover 5 years. My last two horses were from Caribbean Thoroughbred Aftercare, which they were mares from Puerto Rico. One ran 162 races. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She came later. One ran 138 races. The first one ran 96. But I really got a soft spot then for working with these awesome mares with a lot of starts that tend to get overlooked because they are a little hotter or they run longer. They don't have the perfect legs and they're older when they're retiring, but they're tough campaigners. And I saw that need of, I always loved the chestnut mares and I always loved those kind of underdog horses. So that was the horse that I wanted to start to support. So my 2019 makeover mare, which is the last year I did the makeover, is Worthy of Wings. And so we named Mareworthy, kind of came out of her name. We needed a t-shirt. Every year I had to have a t-shirt and a logo for the makeover because I'm crazy like that. So the logo on my hat actually was the logo that came out of her as Mareworthy, and the idea was there were t-shirts for everyone, and it was Mareworthy means being like good enough for a mare to recognize you. That's really if you're worthy of a mare, right, you're pretty special.
I like that.
And that ended up being our racing stokes for our first homebred. So we bred Freya in 2017 to Ohio Stallion. We were living in Ohio to Vertiformer, a son of Dynaformer, intentionally because Freya's very laid back and lazy, and I needed a little fire. Well, we got our dragon. The baby is definitely Diana raced well. She ran 5 times in Ohio, made 50 grand. So she had a good earnings per start.
Oh.
And we ended up retiring her in 2022 when we moved to Kentucky. It was during all of that, we were building kind of the nonprofit started to be a thing that I really wanted to do. And we moved to Kentucky in 2022 with 5 horses. One of them was Worthy of Wings. And then Freya, and Diana was already down here. Her daughter's Lady Dianaformer. Diana was already in Kentucky for race training. So we've kind of moved down to here. My 2017 makeover horse is still with us, Q. Others have been rehomed, so they've gone off. And that's when we wanted to move to Kentucky because we're closer to the mares, and the broodmare specifically became a thing for me. And we had a really bad dystocia in 2022 with Freya. We tried for a second baby and we lost the foal. So I realized that I'm not going to breed her anymore because that to me is just, I have one bad experience and I'm not going to try and push for the second. Last year we had a C-section, so that mare got retired. I kind of was like, what happens to these broodmares when they are not having a productive career anymore? And I started to really look at the Keeneland sale in November and realize a lot of those 18-year-old and older mares that are bred really because people are getting the baby in the belly, the mare doesn't have a lot of long-term useful life for breeding, for reproduction, and where do they go? And that was really where I was like, let's make an outlet for that. Let's make a way for people to rehome them, whether it's the 7-year-old like Egoli we rehomed and went on to do really, really well at the makeover. She couldn't get there in foal. They tried for 3 seasons. She retired. She's an incredible quality road mare, like lovely mare. She's barrel racing now and doing really, really well. Barrel racing and poles up in Minnesota.
Love that.
And she's just a tough mare. So that's how things kind of grew. Was really my passion was to let's protect. I've always loved mares. I've always loved thoroughbred mares. Let's protect them from ending up in bad situations when their breeding career is done. And I always will preface this up front too. I do believe that euthanasia is a fair end of life for a horse. So I'm advocating in that sense too. It's education. It's not just sympathy and tears and whatnot. It's really seriously, what is the right choice for this horse, and how can we educate owners about the options they have for end of life planning, estate planning, and just herd management in general?
How do you go about finding, or people finding you? If I need to retire a broodmare and I don't have land, do I call you? And do you also make phone calls and bring horses in yourself?
Yeah. Right now we have a wait list. It's a constant wait list. So people will find us. A lot of that actually, I have a really good relationship with the team at New Vocations. So when they have people that call there and ask about rehoming a mare, they'll usually send them to me. And then I kind of go from there. A lot of it right now has been direct placement. Yeah.
Sorry, not just a mare, but Ex-broodmare
Correct.
specifically?
Yeah, ex-broodmare. Yeah, it's a good clarification. So they'll call me. Some of them we actually I go to the sales and actually shop in November. So this past November, we bought. I personally bought an 18-year-old mare who had her 13th foal this year. But we bought her with the intention of making sure. So I go and watch all the 18-year-old and older mares, and if they're selling for low or selling to someone that I know is maybe not somewhere I would want them to go, I bid against them. I talked to the consigners to say, hey, what's the plan? Does this mare have a reserve? What's the buyback? Is she going to, where's your plan for this mare if she doesn't sell here? How is she protected? And then my job is really, I stepped in on the one. We buy her personally because the charity can't really be breeding horses. And then we foal the mare and we will retire the mare to Mareworthy after that. So part of it is a little bit of our personal farm is also kind of helping pipeline it for those horses that
Mhm.
might need someone to kind of step up and either available publicly. Others, it's owners that are reaching out. Some of them been through the kill pens. We've pulled back a lot on that only because my funding is spent a lot better helping horses of people that actually want to find homes for their horses. And it's hard to kind of balance that and say, I'm stepping away from horses that are immediately in need, but in order to have the space. And then the bigger piece is we've moved to a bigger farm. Actually, just yesterday, we moved all the horses. So we moved 28 horses yesterday. And we moved from Georgetown to Nicholasville so we could have more acreage. We went from 16 acres, which is our starter farm. When we got here, we thought, great, we have a nice jumping point for growing this. Well, within 3 years, we now at 68 acres. So the goal for that isn't necessarily to grow the number, but really to give them the appropriate, really right sizing what we have, and then being able to have a property that's more open for events and people coming in. And if I can adopt horses out more quickly, we're working on that's part of that big piece is finding the right homes. We've had success adopting a 25-year-old mare, a 19-year-old mare into babysitter homes or nurse mare homes, being able to, and again, I would look at the hormonally induced nurse mare situation. We're not adopting out to, where they're going to breed just for nurse mares that way. But from a standpoint of the education behind it, now I can move horses a little more quickly. And we're starting to do things like adopt them out in pairs. So broodmares are a great first horse for someone who just has a piece of land and doesn't want a high maintenance horse. Most of your senior broodmares are going to take care of you. They're going to take care of your kids. They might not be a riding horse, and that's kind of not how I'm promoting them. They're not really there. Even if they can be, great, good for you. But the goal is you have a pretty thing in your backyard that's a way less maintenance than a 4-year-old. And it's going to, if you get that 4-year-old later, you already have a built-in babysitter for it.
There you go.
Yep.
That's perfect. I love it.
I think it's such a, we talk about aftercare a lot within the industry, and we don't always do a good job of highlighting that, which is one of the, I think, there's a lot of criticisms about the racing industry, and this is one that I think is pretty valid. And the criticism is often that we're not doing enough in aftercare. We can always do more, right? But especially in the last 20 years and really in the last 10 to 15 years, we've really astronomically increased the amount of effort. But what we're really bad about doing is talking about what we're doing. So many people are doing this quietly behind the scenes. And I think that was that was a tactical mistake on our part as an industry to not kind of open the doors and let people see, which is why I think what you are doing is so important. And one of those components, you touched on it a little bit, is the education part of that. And I know you've got a bunch of different programs and things, but can you talk to us just about some of those programs that you're doing to really bridge that education gap?
Yeah, so a lot of it is, first of all, we need to increase the demand for, so like the Retired Racehorse Project's focus was increase the demand for horses in second careers, right? Right now, I need to increase the demand for pasture pets. That's really, at the end of the day, people aren't out shopping they think of they need a horse that's utilitarian. I'm going to ride it. And people who don't ride aren't looking for horses because they don't think they're worthy of having a horse, right? Or they just, oh, I need a horse I can ride. Reality, I have 28 horses I haven't ridden in 4 years. It's what it's going to be. I've also chosen that. But so one of the programs we launched this past winter was Mareworthy Academy, and it was a 8-week online free. We did all virtual one every week for 8 weeks. There were virtual sessions to train someone how to be a horse owner. And so we want to start doing more of that in person. Now at the new farm, we actually have a donor suite where people can stay. So we can have people come and stay here and actually do a weekend of hands-on at the end of it if they want. But the idea is that we build people's interest in a horse through their first understanding that they're okay to do it, that I don't know everything and I've been doing this a long time, right? I'm always asking and learning. And so the best thing you can learn with horses is to learn that you can ask questions and to learn that it's okay not to know everything and to learn where your resources are. So the whole course from Mareworthy Academy is really just about understand the basic vernacular. So understand what a farrier does, understand why you would call your veterinarian. But then at the end of the day, understand the difference between Timothy hay and alfalfa hay and why that matters and what nutrition is, but really know who to ask when you have a nutrition question, know who to ask when you have a hoof question. Make sure you have your tribe strong. And then I think anyone can have a horse. If you have a good tribe around you, and you have, land, even I'm happy to teach people about dry lotting. We had 18 mares on a 4-acre dry lot for the past 2 years, and they all
Wow.
are healthy and happy, and we get through a lot of hay, but and they're all senior mares. They've been
Isn't
staying
that,
healthy.
yeah,
It's
plenty of
possible.
horses live that way in
Yep.
different parts of the country that don't have the lush green grass that we have
Correct.
in the bluegrass. What, so are those recorded? And like, can people like access those trainings
Yep.
anytime?
So they are recorded right now. Where the website's in a bit of a migration, but mareworthy.com is where everything lives. Mareworthy Academy is on that. The recordings are not live right now for everyone to access, but they will be back up in about a week or two. Once we sell from the move, we have a whole new site going, because one of the things we also run as a fundraiser, it's our monthly fundraiser, is Pasture Pals. It's our recurring donors. And so Pasture Pals is happening now going forward with a little different way for people to donate, and a different experience where their name is on the stalls at the new barn, and they get really kind of engaged. We want more visits to the farms. People kind of meet those mares, and we have people asking to adopt horses because they meet them and they fall in love and they get a connection and they follow their babies. And we're trying to teach them how to use equine line to follow their produce records and understand, like, really, this mare is more than just this one horse, right? There's a whole family and a connection, and they get really excited. But yes, everything, mareworthy.com is where everything lives. Under Mareworthy Academy, there's some information on it, but the recordings actually will be going up on the new site, and hopefully by the end of the month is the plan, because in September, we have our other big program, which is the Mareworthy Stakes, and that's an annual fundraiser. It's always been a calendar contest. Historically, people submit pictures. It's a fundraiser for the month. It's a good way to kind of just talk about things. But this year we're going to be changing it. We're going to be having white labeled products for the winners. So the winners will actually have like a candle that's named after their horse, and the scent is designed for their horse. And then people can buy those year round, or a coffee blend that's for the horse, a wine bottle. So those are things we're going to do. But that's more of just kind of from a fundraising perspective, is obviously a big piece. Education wise, though, it really comes down to owners. They asked originally calling me, right? They call the number on the website. It's 59212-9118. And then that's the Mareworthy line, and we'll just kind of answer those questions as we need to. We're launching with the new website, Mareworthy Match, which is a classifieds listing that's free for people to list their horses. So one of the challenges we find, it's only for mares, only for thoroughbred mares initially, and it could be even one that isn't a brood mare. We find that when I don't have a place, we want to help network them into another home. And we've had some good success with those direct placements, where then we provide the long-term follow-up. So we have automated recurring follow-ups with all the horses that get adopted, which makes it really helpful for them to touch base. And it's not just about, did you send me the thing? It's, hey, it's spring. Have you talked to your vet about spring vaccines? Hey, they've been there for a week now. Have you scheduled your first farrier appointment? Have you moved? And then on the mare's birthday, they get something like a happy birthday. It keeps them engaged. And then opening that up to people that, Leah, if you were going to rehome a horse, right? You can go in, list her on the site, you rehome everything through there, and then opt in for that program. And then that means we're just sending those automated messages, and the responses come back to the actual adopter. So, the actual the seller in that case. But
do I pay for something? Do I have to pay for anything for it to be?
That's all part of programming. I think that part of the piece is we need to make tools and resources are available. So like what to do when your horse is in a kill pen. That's the whole revamp with the new site, is to have more of those. What should I do? Who do I call? This is an emergency. What should I do? And those are kind of that program. I think the education is the biggest piece of the gap of this. People don't know what they don't know. They think when they rehome a broodmare to the neighbor down the street that they're doing a good thing, because that person told them, I'm going to give her a home for life. And 2 days later, she's in a kill pen, right? And they didn't nefariously try and dump the mare. They learn, and they don't do it again, but they shouldn't. We don't do anything to educate them. Just like me as a racehorse owner, dear Lord, I get so angry that owners are not included in the conversation for racehorse people. We're not educated. Like, I'm educated on horses, but I had to learn and teach myself about racing, because not all trainers are there kind of teaching you along the way. And I think Mareworthy's role is to teach people about, you're a breeder, you have a broodmare, this is what you can do, and then shame on you if you don't do it. Like, it's kind of, I can't hold them accountable if I don't set the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great point. And I think that's a major problem we have in our industry that you just identified, Kyle, is there's so many well-intended people in our industry who just don't have the tools. And I know that to people listening who are maybe looking into the industry from an outside view, that might seem absurd, because it seems like we have all of these resources and people, and we do, but we're not always great about, like you just said, connecting those things together. And so I think that it's one of the things that Mareworthy is doing. There's some other organizations who are doing a really, really great job of that. But that's something that we have to do internally, which kind of leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you have time for your life because you're doing so many things, but you've also spoken at a couple of big, I would say, industry events this year.
Yeah.
And at the Association of Racing Commissioners International back in, was it May? May-ish?
Somewhere around there. No, it was May, 'cause it was right after the Derby. It was a week after the Derby.
So back in May, there was an Aftercare panel that was asked to speak to this group of people, which when I first heard of this, and I don't know if this is something they're doing yearly, and I just got wind of it this year, but I thought it was so interesting for that group of people to invite people who are doing Aftercare to speak to them, because I think that shows how we're taking steps in our industry to bridge this gap. But you said a phrase there that is kind of blown up within our industry, and it was the concept of foal to forever. Can you expand on what that means?
Yeah, I think so for me, when I'm breeding, we had 3 foals this year. Two of them, actually one was one we planned. One was a mare that a friend gave us to help backstock our C-section mare that we retired last year, and the other was the older mare that I bought out of the sale last year. So we had 3 foals this year, but when I'm choosing to breed, I should be thinking about the full life cycle of the horse. So I use the example locally. If you're in Kentucky, you might know Holly Hill restaurants and things like that. And they have a very good network of a lot of different restaurants. So Midway Bakery is part of it. And Midway Bakery supplies all their restaurants, right? They all work together to support each other. So Midway Bakery has obviously open to the public, but they're also supporting the restaurants and the restaurants supporting them. And I think that in the industry, we tend to look at this as there's the breeding groups, there's the sales groups, there's the training, and there's the aftercare. And so we don't all really work like synergistically across the scope. We tend to think of like, well, it's not my problem anymore, I hand it off to here, right? And it's not that I think it's like an intentional negative, but thinking foal to forever really is saying the day that I choose to breed my horse, am I thinking about the end in mind? The day that I choose to take a horse or claim a horse or buy a horse, am I thinking about the end in mind? And that end in mind might not always be the end of the horse's life. It might be the next step in the horse's life. But am I thinking about planning that? Because if I don't, I shouldn't do it in the first place. So I think foal to forever. I have to think forever every time as soon as I start. And from the start, I'm thinking about the end.
Yeah, I love that so much because, I think it's unrealistic to expect people a single person will own a horse for its whole life. And I think that's something that everybody in our industry and across the board in all equine industries understand, because sometimes you just don't know what happens. But to your point, if you have to retire a mare or something happens, you need those resources to appropriately place that horse into the next steps. And I love that concept so much because it is encouraging an offensive approach to aftercare instead of a defensive. And something that our industry is really bad about in general is learning to play offense. And so I think that this really encourages that mindset, and it can be applied, to, like you said, all life stages, individual from foal to yearling to 2-year-old sales to racehorse, all across the board. It encourages people to start thinking about things in instead of being reactionary, in a proactive way.
Yeah. As an owner breeder, I won't go to the sale and buy an older mare just for the foal, because we're thinking of exactly that.
Right.
What does that look like, or what could that look like to you, in your opinion? A small time breeder, like, what does that look like? What does that thought process look like? The foal
As
to
far
forever.
as from that, in that perspective of going to the sales, or just in general across the board?
Just in general,
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
a small breeder.
Yep.
You say before the breeding starts to think foal to forever. What does that look like or sound like, or give me a thought process?
Yeah. So I think for me, like limiting my crop size so that I'm not thinking about like, if I can only support one in a year, right? That's what we did the first time, right? We had one baby, we tried it out. We said, hey, this is going well. We increased that a little bit. We ended up having 2 in our second crop, if you will. And that was, we had a third foal that year because one of the Mareworthy mares we got from the kill pen came to us pregnant with a half Appaloosa in her belly. So we had to foal 3 last year. But it's thinking about the fact of like, my goal for this horse is that it's going to race. If I'm breeding industry specific, right, I'm going to have this horse to race. And therefore, I have that in mind. But then what does the aftercare look? If it hits as a filly, I'm probably going to keep it, right? If it hits the ground as a colt, am I already thinking about gelding it? When am I going to geld it? I'm thinking about that ahead of time. We already have the plans for our 2 yearlings from last year. One will get gelded, one will not. And it's just because I don't think he should be going out and having any chance at a I don't want the one who's a little crooked and the C-section baby who's just big and has 2 stifle OCDs and whatnot to actually, be going on. And then
Okay.
planning for what are those retirement farms in my area, or what are the aftercare organizations. So I think it's really more about educating yourself than it is about actually having the final plan. So I
Gotcha.
know I can retire to new locations, or I can retire to Second Strider, and then understanding their pipeline and being realistic about what that wait time might look like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I just want to think out loud for a quick
Yeah.
second, and like I want you to comment. So I can think about ourselves and I can say, okay, I'm breeding these fillies. These fillies will fit a program for breeding. The way we're doing it, they should fit at least a regional program. So they should be,
Yeah.
they have plans, but I don't know what that looks like. And then I say, okay, I've got these colts. They're going to be really popular for racing, but if they don't race, we bring them home. Like people
Right.
know they can call us. They can, people do have outlets for those
Yeah.
boys. So then what? Is there a piece that I'm missing? Or, I obviously we know about Mareworthy and
Yeah.
other. So I've got that kind of, I feel like I know who I could call if I had a whole, blah, blah, blah. So am I missing anything in that thought process or any?
I think the difference where I've caused ruffled some feathers, so I'll do it again, is that
Yeah.
I'm breeding sport horses who can race, not race horses who can sport. And I'm not saying that what this gets people under their feathers is true racing people tend to think that means I don't value race horses or I don't value racing. And it's not that by any chance. I wouldn't be breeding the Thoroughbred if I didn't think they were a valuable all-purpose horse. But I'm
Yeah.
looking at horses that when I breed a mare to a stallion, I'm thinking, does this cross have a chance in the dressage ring or in the gaming ring, or do they have a chance as a jumper? And most of them, it's always going to be yes, but I really shouldn't be just looking on the paper. And I think that's the lesson I learned from our C-section. I bred more on paper than I bred for the 75 cross to the mare who made 350,000, who sold for 140,000 as a broodmare prospect. And I bred a $1,000 mare to a stallion that I never would have chosen. But on paper, it was a 75% cross to that horse. I went with paper. I didn't care about conformation. I didn't care about her pasterns. I didn't care about the fact that she's a little offset at the knee.
All learning.
Right? And so I did that, and now the baby ended up needing it, and it took her 4 trips to the shed to get pregnant. I kept going because I knew best, because on paper, this baby was going to be my first commercial hit, and he ended up being my biggest money suck. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to think of is this horse going to be a long-term? So I'm breeding the stallions, like, obviously I don't have the big dollars either. So I bred our first Kentucky stallion we bred to was Painter. We'll actually include, but that's the baby we lost. But I'm breeding the stallions who are hitting the board with good runners, but at the end of the day are producing aftercare athletes, not once and done and kind of that are only running 2 or 3 times. I'm looking at the stallions that are producing foals that run longer careers, because I feel like they're going to have a sounder long-term life than a horse that hits as a 2-year-old.
Yeah. No, I don't think that shouldn't ruffle feathers. At the end of the day, producing, we all want to produce a good competitive thoroughbred.
Yep.
It shouldn't ruffle feathers, but it shockingly does ruffle feathers. And Leah and I both are, Leah, we've talked about this. We both obviously support Aftercare. Leah also has her own horses, as do I, who raced, and now we ride them or have helped to move them into sport horse careers. And this is something I did not come from the thoroughbred industry specifically. I came to it I fell in love with thoroughbreds through watching racing, but also from interacting with off the track thoroughbreds at my local riding barn. And this concept of people being upset by that it always shocks me still when I hear it, even though I've been in this business for, 17 years now, because exactly like you said, Leah, we're breeding athletes.
Yeah.
And an athlete is an athlete is an athlete.
Conformationally, I'm not going to breed. I'm not looking to breed a dressage horse.
Right.
I still speed, I still want.
But we can still do, there's horses like, we have horses all the time who you see selling for a lot of money who just go on and they're just not racehorses for a variety of reasons. Conformation, just not wanting to be whatever. And so, there's just because you breed a horse or buy a horse doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a racehorse. Just like in the sport horse world, if you breed or buy a dressage horse, it may want to be a jumper and vice versa. And I think that, for me, when I'm looking at this concept of foal to forever and how I'm involved in the industry as someone who isn't breeding their own horses, but is working for somebody who is breeding horses, the way that we look at that is, how do we manage the costs of our business, that are first and foremost taking care of the business and the humans and staff that it's supporting. And also then how do we support that horse in the best way to make sure it has the best life, and quite often those two things are always aligning because they should.
Yeah.
And if we have a horse who's not running on the track and isn't going to show enough potential to sell or be, dropped into a mid or low level claiming race, oftentimes if you put them into training and market them in the sport horse world, they have a lot of value because of thoroughbreds are just, in my opinion, the best breed out there. But we've
Agreed.
seen a lot of, like you were talking about, Kyle, increasing in demand, and the retired racehorse projects we've talked about. We had an earlier episode on with Alessandroni Dwyer and Sebelius, and we talked about how that program has really increased the need or the demand for thoroughbreds. And I think that, just having those tools, like you were saying, as someone who is, like you were saying, Leah, okay, you bred a horse and you sold it, and now somebody's calling you saying, hey, this horse isn't working out for X, Y, and Z. It's having that tool bag of resources and educational materials that you can provide to them ready to go. You don't have to say, yeah, I'll call you back, and maybe you forget, or maybe you can't get them again. It's right there immediately in that conversation. You have those tools to be able to say, hey, call these people X, Y, and Z, or, you should get it evaluated by a vet first so that we have a better idea. And you can offer that type of advice. And, I think that, especially within the framework of the thoroughbred industry, is something that has been a point of frustration for me personally, but I know a lot of other people in our industry, because we didn't always have that quick access to those resources.
Yeah. I love that. And I think education.
Yes.
To people, what you said, I want to highlight again, I'm going backwards a little bit. To people who think they maybe aren't able to have a horse, you educating them and saying, no, you are. Yep. You're attracted to them. They're majestic and beautiful. And I'm going to give you the tools so that you can do that. Is huge, because we've got pasture ornaments that nobody gets to gaze upon. And the thought that we could change that, that's beautiful. So let's go Mareworthy. I'm so excited for you. And how are we, besides fundraising, how are we getting the word out to the people like that want that pasture ornament, and how are we getting that word out to them?
So we had a fun, this March and April, we did a Shed It Sunday at the farm, where basically we had volunteers could sign up for a shift, and we had 6 to 10 people at a time. They came over and the mares were in stalls, and they just curried them. Just curry mares. It was Shed It Sunday. Yep. And that ended up catching that Mareworthy Academy caught some local news and stuff too. But that event was so popular that we're now going to start doing something similar, where we have more arm farm. So Brunch with the Broodmares, which I know Resolute Racing has done something similar like that. We've been wanting to do. We're going to have Marimosas and Margaritas, and really leaning into the fun of it. I think at the end of the day, it's really, and I know that John at Old Friends talks a lot about this too. When people touch a horse, and Michael's talked about it for a long time too, but when someone touches a horse, physically that connection that they see changes. And then when they feel oh, I can actually do this and I'm okay with it. So a lot of the word gets out through social media. I'm very active on Facebook. That's just where OTTB Guy has kind of grown. So that's my primary channel. Mareworthy has a page there as well, so we put information out there. Mareworthy Match as a website, I'm hoping that will, as a classified site that's free, will drive a lot of traffic, so that the more that we get that as an educational resource. And things like this, like podcasts like yours, are a great way for people to learn about stuff. And then Pollock Report's been really generous to us. We've had a lot of good articles on that over the time, but I really think
did you say the news picked it up? The local news?
Yeah, the local News Herald,
you can't go anywhere and curry a horse. You just can't without paying for a lesson. Not everybody wants a lesson. That is I could see our news picking it up and then it go bigger. So that's I like that.
We tend to see the horses all the time, and we forget that is something that people will do. People will pay us to come and do farm chores. I'm learning. I'm you'll pay me to come clean stalls because you want connect. They want to learn. They want to do it. We need to. And as an industry, I think one of the greatest things that's been happening, and this is something that I was really excited about when we bred Diana. Everything, my full cameras are live. Every update about her, every tear that I shed has been public, because now I don't have Griffin Johnson's reach, right? And he's doing a great thing in the sense of really getting a reach out there.
And come curry mares at Mareworthy.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Griffin Johnson. Next time you're in Kentucky, we expect to see you currying a mare. 100%. Let's make that happen.
This poor industry is just, Griffin Johnson needs to clone himself about 18 times. Everyone in this industry right now is like, Griffin over here.
But and I think and the thing is it comes down to the public wants to see that stuff. But we as an industry have always, at least when I came into this industry, because I'm new to it, I saw why are you showing the bath? People care about the bath. people care about, and you have to ignore the noise and the haters.
Yeah.
I think something that you do so well, and that I think as an industry we're really, really bad about and could do more of, and it's very delicate and it requires tact, but I don't think we do a good job of responding authentically to the bad, because there's this concept that, and we talked about it on the last episode with the Iverones, because I thought their passion and love for the horses came through so strongly in that episode. And there's this concept that, everyone's just about it for the money and no one actually cares about the horses. And as someone who, especially on the breeding side of things, which, the racetrack is its own, there's a lot of stuff that happens there, but breeding is not for the faint of heart. And oftentimes it does go badly and it is heartbreaking. And I have shed more tears with my coworkers over that side of it than a bad horse race. And I think that's one of the reasons why when they don't run or when they underperform, it's disappointing, but it's not devastating, because at the end of the day, we're just so proud that they're there and that, hopefully they're loving what they're doing, that they made it to the track at all. But I think you showing the authentic reactions to when it goes bad, I think that's why people, what you're doing resonates with people so much, Kyle, because, and you're right, like, it is exhausting. You're opening the door to critics and that's a lot to handle. But I do wish more of us would open the door into those moments, because it's also an educational moment. This foal didn't make it. Well, why didn't it make it? And why was this choice made? And it's not just all about the money. And in fact, especially where that is concerned, it's the opposite of that. We would have saved a lot of money if we hadn't tried, but we try because we care. And a lot of times these are horses that are never even going to be commercial prospects. We're just trying to save the horse to make sure it has a good life. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox because we are getting short on time, and I literally could talk to you for hours. I'm so glad that we got you on finally. We've been talking about it for a while, but before we ask you your hot seat questions, I just want you to really quickly talk about the future of Mareworthy. You mentioned earlier that you just moved to a bigger farm, and just to clarify, it is in the central Kentucky area. So we have highlighted a lot of places in the area that people can go to if you're local to Kentucky, or if you're visiting at any point during the year. Tell us about the future and how people can get involved.
So the first highlight of where we're living now is we're right next to a winery. So that's perfect. We're going to do lots of wine. Like literally we have a gate from our property into the winery. So 1922 house is right next door. So literally that will be my new favorite friend. But so that from an event perspective, we moved to a larger farm. We're actually leasing now, which is a step back. Sean and I have owned the farm, and we kind of, as individuals, co-founders, we've kind of just bankroll what we need to when there's a gap, but we realized it was time to move and expand. So the next step for Mareworthy really is to be able to increase our adoption rates. Last year, we got our first TCA grant. This year, we are hopefully going to get our first RTA accreditation, and we also are now part of the ASPCA warm-up ring, which I'm really excited about because ASPCA is doing a lot of interesting things around horses who are not rideable, and broodmares is a big focus for them. So we're now part of their warm-up ring, and we'll be able to start to be eligible for their grants and also for their programming. And I think that that's a really big step for us to get that networking outside of the thoroughbred industry and be connected with a group like that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So we're moving forward on that, which is exciting. And the future really looks like we're going to start having more events at the farm. So we want to really start having people here to do those tours and the grooming, and whether that's through horse country specifically for tours or we have to do them ourselves. We're looking at doing an open house the end of September, kind of as an initial event here. And then we'll start having brunch in the barn aisles. We'll have wine tastings here. So just kind of a lot of events that way is the real big future. And then the launch of the new website, being able to kind of hopefully reach a different audience or have more resources. I think that's been the constant theme I hear is moving horses is great, rehoming horses is great, but the education side of, hey, let's match make or let's give you the tools you need. That's really where we're at. So the goal for me is just to see that this becomes something that other organizations replicate and copy. I know Cold Spring, she just changed her model a little bit, but that we start to have more places that are having a soft landing point for these broodmares. And then we work with the sales companies as my big, it's different than like the Aftercares are taking horse off the track. They're working more with the trainers. I need to work with the consigners. So really being close to the consigners and making sure that I know the horse that's at risk is even before they even get cataloged. I'm getting a call and saying they're going to catalog this horse. What do you think we should do?
Gotcha. That's awesome.
That's really interesting. That is so before, so the consigners know you.
Yeah.
So before they enter a horse, they can call you.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Don't have your owner pay the listing fee. Like literally, why are you paying to catalog a horse that's going to sell for $1,000 or $3,000?
Well,
It'll cost you more.
don't sell a horse to get rid of it.
Correct. Exactly. And then
Yeah.
instead find, I like that.
We have an answer for you.
Yep.
And sometimes, like you're saying, Kyle, it's just about needing the resources and having a consignor be able to say to that owner now, hey, I know for whatever reason you've got to move this horse, but let me propose to you a better option.
Correct.
And having that conversation and
save
you money, save you some money.
Yeah. This is the way we do it anymore.
Yeah. And Dr. Fraley, I love something Dr. Brian Fraley says something I really like. And he said, because I got a bill for one of my podiatry visits and I was like, Brian, come on. And he's like, look, I'd rather shear the sheep for life than butcher it once. And I think that if consigners think of that same way, like selling a horse one time, but rather than getting the horse into the right place, might not put the money in the pocket, right? And I'm not saying this is that consigners are bad at this. Like we have several that reach out to us, right? And they're all they're good about it, but it's the fact of let me help you find an option beforehand before you even list it. When that mare's getting ready to wean, I already this year, of course, this is the time we're coming up on weaning. I didn't get the mare back in foal. What are we going to do with her? They're either going to potentially list her or they're going to try and find a private party, but at least they can call and I can say, great, I don't have a space here, but I know so-and-so does, or here's the list of resources, or here's a way you can do it safely. Don't just give her to the friend down the road. Do it, but give it with a contract and then follow up. Like follow up is the most important thing. If you don't know what's up with the horse in 6 months or 1 week, that's when the horse ends up in trouble.
Oh my gosh, Kyle, this has been so great. And I'm really glad that we positioned this unintentionally right at the time of the November sales. I know we've already done some entries, but maybe some people will hear that and be a resource for both people inside and outside of the industry, which typically we focus on our audience being, the general public. But this one, if you're in the thoroughbred industry, listen to this episode. So important.
Have you talked to the CBA, the Consignor Breeder Association?
I have not had an official meeting with them. I've chatted.
Because this is a new way. This is a new way. We don't do that anymore. It's something I say to myself a lot. Sometimes I want to do, and no, we don't do that anymore. And this is one of those things that we, as an industry, don't want to do anymore. Consigners don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Huge.
Thank you.
All right. We always ask our guests these questions at the end.
Okay.
First question is, which horse first got you hooked into racing, being a fan of racing, or thoroughbreds just in general?
That would be 1989 Sunday Silence. So that was my formative newspaper clippings and everything. So yeah, and that's why this year the mare that I got out of the sale last year, the Elusive Surprise, who's a granddaughter of Weekend Surprise, so really great female family. Yeah. She actually was in Foal, the Tale of Silence, and of course I now have our colt that she's at Hagyard now with ever-growing Bill. We can't figure out what's going on, but he's a lovely colt, and so we at least have his sire is out of the Sunday Silence mare. So I was so excited to well, you know what? If I'm going to get an 18-year-old mare out of the sale and retire her, this is the right one to get. And he's such a cool colt. So yeah, Sunday Silence was my non-horse family. That's really clipping newspaper articles, and I still they were all housed away in a little box when I was a kid.
I love that so much. And Sunday Silence, for whatever reason, his story took him across the pond to Japan, and he has built what I think we can confidently say a global empire on his back of just outstanding racehorses who are winning all over the world. And what a cool story he ended up having.
Yeah.
Outside of everything he did here as a racehorse. So I love that he also brought so many fans like you.
Yeah.
So then now you are involved in the game as a breeder yourself.
Yep.
And I'm sure you're following the racing just like the rest of us. Do you have a current favorite or maybe recently retired racehorse?
Yep. So I have a current favorite that I'm super excited about Ewing, because we have Nick's Go in the belly. So Diana's first colt last year he's Lord Pegaso, but he's by Painter. And so she's in Foal to Nick's Go. It's a really great cross. Nick's Go is we also had a country grammar this year, because I'm one of those that, again, I'm looking at the physical, I'm looking at their athleticism, their whatever. And I think that what happens, the Sunday Silence factor of these horses that got kind of a little overlooked commercially. And Nick's Go is one that I was breeding to, hoping he doesn't leave the country, because he obviously has foreign owners, and it's also, doesn't have as big of books. So seeing a horse like Ewing, who is running so well, it makes me extra excited, because Diana, it's not really close up, but her dams, Broodmare sires, Indian Charlie. So we have a little bit of the Indian Charlie on the bottom, like Ewing does. And I'm just excited because it's cool to see Nick's Go be the first one to hit grade one. Well, not grade one, graded stakes territory. And he's having a great season. So yeah, he's got some.
We mentioned Griffin Johnson, him who is not sponsoring this episode, but sounds like he is. Griffin just announced a few weeks ago that he's also bought into Ewing as well. Yep. So fans of Griffin who have become, Paddock Pulse fans, that's a really great tip to throw out to those guys. Keep an eye on Ewing. He looks like a really good one. He's already a graded stakes winner, but really exciting.
So excited for him. Like, of course, selfishly, but also just it's great to see what it'll do for the sport because of Griffin. And of course, there's always Torpedo Anna. I'm gonna love my mare, so that's my obviously. Why would I? She would be, but right now I'm just hyper focused on Nick's Go and what we might have next year in the belly. So Ewing is my excited. I have to watch all the races, and I'm tracking him on Equibase.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kyle, thank you so much for coming and talking about your history and also Mareworthy and some really important topics in the industry that, definitely deserve a conversation. Let us know, tell our listeners, how can they find Mareworthy socials? How do they find you?
Yep. So Mareworthy's best way is mareworthy.com, MareWorthy.com. And then on social media, it's just at Mareworthy. And my social handle is at OTTBGuy, GUI. So that's usually the best way to follow me there.
Thank you so much for all the hard work you guys are doing. This is really awesome.
We're happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
See you guys next time.